That's going to be a very controversial statement. That said,
That's great.
yeah, that said,
It's still true though. Your ancestors are now your responsibility, and they need nurturing. So that's one of the first things is get somebody to help you on the other end. What's the difference between ayahuasca and mushrooms? Lots. Mushrooms is older. Mushrooms is the original. The formula for ayahuasca came from mushrooms because mushrooms carries all data on the planet. It's the number one reason we in the condition we in. Look at our relationships. Look at our divorces. A lot of this can be solved. All ceremonies have one thing in common: trying to get a message to you. They're trying to get you to see something. If the doctors had to start taking the medicine that they were prescribing to cancer patients, we'd have a cure for cancer. We deserve, black people, to have this type of healing for us. We live in an illusion. How do we navigate through it? We need to use our birthday, like we've been doing for centuries, to navigate through this lived experiment. It's not an experience we're in because it's new every day. I think human design is something that is essential that we should be teaching in elementary school. Human design was brought here for the children because you need all of it for transformation of you and your consciousness so you can be your ancestors' wildest dream.
what up, tribe? Welcome to another episode of Young, Black, and Vegan. I'm your host, Keeps It Real, and as many of you know, I am currently in Bali, and Bali has been full of a lot of divine synchronicities. Today, my guest is one of those such synchronicities. He is a mycologist. He's your favorite astrologer. He is a human design reader, and he is just a bro that is about to drop a lot of light. Welcome to the show, none other than Oyi Sun. Oyi, did I leave anything out of the resume?
Oh man, yes, I am my ancestors' wildest dream.
Mm.
That's really the main part. That's really the only part. You know, those who I represent, these ancestors of mine. So definitely don't want to leave them out. That's how I got here.
Yeah, shout out to the ancestors, and I
Absolutely.
definitely think that's one of the reasons why we actually met. So before I came, you saw the interview I did with Tony Roeder, and there's been a lot of ancestor theme these last few months. I believe that's what led me to read his book, which led to the interview. But it was still me wondering, like, okay, I'm hearing you're supposed to get in touch with the ancestors and all of that, but like, how do you do that?
We got to give a shout out to Tony Browder because he's the one that planted the seed before I knew what I was supposed to be doing, right? In the Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization. He says, what you do 5 minutes from now, 5 months ago, and 5 years from now affects what happens 5 minutes from now, 5 months from now, 5 years from now. And I hope I said that right. What happened in the past affects what happens in the future.
Right.
And so my ancestors affected me and where I'm going this journey. And one of the things about the ancestors is trauma, because we have trauma now. Guess where we got that from? Our ancestors. So the trauma that I was suffering from is what led me to getting in touch with my ancestors. But ancestors had that same situation going on that they couldn't resolve, so they passed it down just like a will. So just like karma can be passed down. So if you have an ancestor who had exceptionally good karma, you might be wondering why your life is so easy. If you had a uncle or a mama or something who was a dirtbag or whatever, you'd be like, man, I ain't even do nothing. Why is my stuff happening like this? Because you can inherit karma.
Have all black people inherited this karma based off of?
100%. Especially slavery is the proof of that.
Okay, so
Slavery is the number one proof of all black people inherited karma from ancestors.
break that down for me.
So we know black people have been here longer than white people. White people have only been on the plane like 30,000 years. So did they bring slavery? No. We were selling slaves first. But you know that we're the original magi, we're the original sorcerers, we're the original high priest. So we weren't just selling physical slaves, we were selling the souls of people as slaves. And it was actually like on a trash pile in Africa. So they were black people selling the souls of other black people on a trash pile for like the equivalent of a quarter.
So that's going to be a very controversial statement. That said,
That's great.
yeah, that said,
It's still true though. This is the thing. Because it's controversial, some people look at things, this is the problem with history.
right.
We inherited this contrary attitude from some of our ancestors who did not discern and dive in to see whether it was true. Whether we got emotionally caught up, oh, that's controversial. So just because he said it. There's a lot of controversial stuff out here that, to me, somebody who knows the truth, that people say that is absolutely ridiculous. Like, if you have sex with someone, you have sex with all the people that they've had sex with. That's a lie.
I've heard that, but
That's a lie.
I've never believed that
It's
myself.
crazy, but it's being repeated, you know what I'm saying, over and over and over again that, yes, actually it takes 6 months before you even get a tie with a person that you're having sex with. So, but the fact that it's being repeated over and over and over again is creating karma for future ancestors. And that's why you got to go back to the root and try to be like, let me get the facts, which is what you're doing, is getting the facts. So you can be like, well, let me cut some of that off so I leave better than what I picked up.
So much in there to unpack. One thing I want to talk about is that you talk about, the ancestral trauma, karma. You also mentioned something called ancestral debris. Now, can you break that down? How do we clean this up? Is there a faster track to get past this ancestral karma, or is it just something that we will have to sit in for a certain amount of time?
Sure, but you didn't ask the third question.
What's the third question?
If there's a faster track, are black people willing to take it?
That's the third question.
The answer is no.
No. Break that down.
The masses want everything fast, but don't want to do what is willing to make it fast. What if you really had to like do a blood ritual, a blood sacrifice to clear up something faster? You ain't willing to do that. Not the majority. The minority maybe. But then what if you have to get the right information first before you take a shortcut?
All right, break all of that down. Ancestral debris, the right information.
Ancestral debris is what you inherit from your ancestors, just like your eye color, just like your name. My surname is Carter. Where does that come from? My father, you know what I'm saying? His father. But I get my blood also from my mother's lineage. So I'm getting traits. So sickle cell anemia, obesity, stuff like that. That stuff is coming down through the traits on the physical level. So ancestral debris is on the metaphysical level because your cells record everything. Your records record whether you did good or bad, like Santa Claus. Your cells record your thoughts. They record your deeds. They record your intentions. But a lot of times, even though we say, oh, I'm so intentional, I'm so such and such, you don't forget that sometimes you got so much debris that setting intentions is absolutely not going to get you the manifestation results that you want. You're going to have to go do some work in the past first before the road is going to be smooth. If a road is raggedy, buying a new car ain't going to make you have a smooth ride. Oh, I got new shocks on this car. Cool, the road is still raggedy. I got a driver to the car now. I got some money and I'm riding in the back seat. The road is still raggedy. Eventually somebody gonna have to get out and do what? Roll their sleeves up and clear this road, which is in the 5% lessons, build or destroy. Number 8, you're gonna have to build something. Every building that you've ever been in went down first before it went up. So you're gonna have to go and tear that road down, which is like a Saturn return when you are going through in your astrological years, like from 27 to 30, your Uranus opposition from 41 to 43. That's you getting out the car, doing the hard necessary work to clear things up. But if you are unaware that there's debris, you just like now have become accustomed to the road being raggedy. You're just like, well, this is just how the road is. Your ancestors are now your responsibility, and they need nurture it. So that's one of the first things is get somebody to help you on the other end. So let's say I'm stuck in a hole. I'm 200 pounds, right? And you're not 200. And I'm like, throw me a rope, yo. And you throw me a rope. And I just tie the rope around my waist and just fall back. You're going to yell back down there. You're going to say, well, hey, dog, why don't you pull a little bit too to help me? I'm pulling, why don't you pull? Not trying to pull me down, but can I get some work on both ends? I need to be strong on my end of the rope too. So one of the first things with clearing up ancestral debris is strengthening your ancestors by feeding your ancestors.
Okay, so let's pause right there because that's one of the things that Tony talks about is providing these sacrifices. And we're in Bali, so we know every morning they are providing these sacrifices and they have their rituals. So break that down. How do you actually feed the ancestors?
Well, one had a sacrifice. Like when you were 3 years old and your mama fed you, was it a sacrifice or she was just sharing what she cooked?
Sharing what you cooked.
That's it. Feeding the ancestors. A sacrifice is for a special occasion. That's why I wanted to say, yes, you can make sacrifices, but that's for like big projects.
Okay.
Like, a grandfather caught 2 bodies, spent some time in prison, sold a lot of drugs. He might need a sacrifice. My grandma, who was good to everybody, too good, and people used her and she died broke, I just need to make her stronger.
Okay.
So,
how do you feed them? What do you feed?
Isn't this young vegan and black?
Young black and vegan.
Young black and vegan.
Yes.
And you are what you eat. Your ancestors are too. So if your ancestors ain't eating nothing, they ain't nothing. If you ain't eating nothing, you're gonna get weak. If you ain't haven't eaten in 4 weeks, and I be like, yo, help me move this refrigerator, you're gonna be like, are you gonna can we stop going and get some groceries? I'm more than willing. Because that's a good thing to do, help you move this refrigerator, but you gonna make me a sandwich? Maybe first. We have to learn to go first. We've been bamboozled. This is where I'm at to take this. We have to realize that we've been lied to about ancestors. So ancestral worship and ancestral feeding is not taught in churches.
No.
Most people who leave church and want to get into ancestors, they think they left church, but they didn't. But they still believe in heaven or hell. Heaven or hell says when you leave here, you leave everything here. Truth is, your ancestors take everything with them. If they died from cancer, they took it with them. Died from the gunshot wound, they took it with them. If they got divorced here, that divorce energy follows them. So there's some correction that's got to be done first before you even go asking your ancestor for help. So my grandmother passed away in the 90s. And when I contacted her and to see, to ask for some help, she couldn't assist me because she was weak. She had 14 children, and to tell her how many grands and great grands she got now. And nobody was feeding her. Everybody was assuming she died and was healthy.
So I'm still waiting. What do you feed them and how?
Oh, you feed them what you eat. The food is carrying the vibration. You don't make food and get angry. You're happy about the food that you're making. So this alchemy that you're producing, kitchen alchemy on the stove, is producing good energy being cooked in with the eggs, with the grits, with the collard greens. So you got your plate. All they need is the energy from the food. So a saucer is normally all you need. Ancestors only need to eat at least once a day. So if you're eating 1, 2, or 3 times a day, the rule is they should eat when you eat. So I don't normally eat breakfast. But when I break bread later on in a meal, I can take some of that off and say, ta-da, this is for you. If I got chicken, rice, macaroni, cheese, 2 starches, and whatever, I just need to break off a little bit and put it to the side. Like if I use this flour, if this is your whole plate, I'm just gonna take off, this little piece. I got some greens I'm putting on there, so I got a little bit of the sausage on there. Man, I got 4 chicken wings. I might do a whole wing for them and be like, ta-da. So that's me. And now I took this, put it on the saucer, went to my altar. That's another thing. Do you eat around your trash can? No. So set up a place. Don't you have a kitchen table for you to eat? Are we at a nice table for us to have food served? Well, it's important that you have a sacred place to offer the sacred offerings. You need to take that and say, all right, check it. Like church, say your grace. Are you offering a prayer with this offering before you give it to them? Put some more vibrations on it. You get pancakes, sometimes people be like, excuse me, can I get some syrup? Your prayers is additional sweetening for this nourishment for this ancestor who hasn't eaten in years. Years. Now they done got a grudge because they're watching you eat. So this is another thing you have to realize. Feed your ancestors so they don't feed off of you. So you're a cameraman. I always like to use the Nikon example. You work this 9 to 5 job and you can look at this nice Nikon, $900. That's a regular price for a Nikon with a lens, and you saved up $750. Next week, you get paid. You're gonna have some extra, and you're gonna have that 150. You're gonna go get that camera, but you ain't been giving nothing to your ancestors, right? So the ancestors be like, "Oh, that camera is more important than me." So now, the day before your check hit, transmission go out in your will. How much is it? $1,100. You can't miss work. What you gonna do? Nikon, the car. You'll get the transmission fixed. Guess who that was? Ancestors. Let me get that. So I like to, as Oprah said, I'm gonna pay it forward. If you full, you ain't gonna be eating off of me. You ain't gonna be begging me if I say, come on over here, dog, I got something for you. I got this pepper, I'm gonna take this. So now I'm using common sense. That's another way, common sense, which ain't also common, on how to dissolve ancestral debris. Like I said, first, know that they not automatically well because they died. 2, they eat with you. 3, they need to have a sacred place. 4, you need to feed them as regularly as you feed yourself.
Okay.
Feed your ancestors so they don't feed off of you.
So you set this food aside for the ancestors, leave it, and go about your day, go to sleep, come back. The food is still sitting there. So then what do you do with that?
You replace it with the food from your plate.
So you just toss it in the trash.
Now you can. Depends on where you stay.
So,
Because you can turn that into another offering.
yeah, so the reason why I'm asking is for the audience, I wanted to clear these steps. So, because people were like, okay, I made this food, and myself included. It's sitting there. What do you mean that the ancestors ate? Because it looks like the exact same way that I left it there.
Oh, good. The ancestors are etherical beings, right? You put the food down, you left, you came back. It looks like the food is undisturbed. The heat is gone from the food. Is it heat energy? So look at the same energy of the food. The ancestors already got it. But just like you believed in Santa Claus, you didn't see him drop the presents off. You didn't see the tooth fairy come take the tooth and leave the money. So it's not for you to see. You know what I'm saying? You're not clear like that.
I don't know if that analogy, we know Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy.
Not when you're young. Not when you're young, you believe whatever. So some people have a very Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy attitude toward ancestors. It's best to go back to that.
Yeah.
It's best to go back to that, where I don't need to figure everything out. I left it here yesterday. I'm about to eat again. They eat when I eat. That's the rule. So your common sense kicks in. If I'm about to eat and I come back and I see the food, I'm gonna get him a fresh plate.
Okay, so let me ask this. That's at home, right?
Right.
Let's say, like here, I'm eating out every single day. Am I at the restaurant putting something to the side and then just leaving that? Or how does that work?
You
if you're
can.
not eating at home.
You can. Several different ways. Excellent question. You could say, bring me another saucer. Or sometimes they'll bring you like coffee and there'll be saucer under there. You start makeshifting things. You're a black MacGyver. You move the coffee, now you got the saucer. I just move this right here and just put it on that plate off my main plate. Now I'm about to go eat. I eat off my main plate. I said my grace, you should still be saying your grace. This thing is going all different ways. You should still pray over your food all the time, whether you go to church or not. So now when you pray over your food, their plate is sitting right there. You praying over their food.
So I want to talk about that. So when I was 19, to my early 30s. That was in church years, and taught to pray and all of
You ain't
that.
start going to church. You was 19.
19, so running the streets before that, and so 19 and early 30s, church years, and from my experience, prayer doesn't work. So I still sometimes do it. It's not a regular practice. So break that down. Why are we praying? Who are we praying to? And what's the purpose of it?
When you go to the gym, you don't lose weight every day you go, but you keep going so it's consistent. Prayer is like going to the gym. If you go to the gym and work out and don't believe you're gonna lose no weight, you also ain't gonna believe. You also ain't
So
gonna lose
let
no
me
weight.
let me let me rephrase it. In church, you're taught that you're praying to a specific God,
Okay.
right? So if that is no longer your beliefs, who are you praying to and why?
You're praying for.
Okay.
You don't have to use it praying to. You're praying. I'm praying. I'm praying to change the vibration of the food. I don't have to pray to somebody to increase the vibration of the food. I have the power in God in me to pray over the food for it to raise the vibration of the food, including pork. It just have to be more energy, more prayer. So that's why we don't eat pork, because it's harder to transform and raise the vibration of pork. It's best to just avoid it. So you don't have to pray to someone. That was the problem. They told you to pray to someone, which took your power. You pray for something. I'm the God. All of us are walking examples of God. God made man in his own image, breathed into him and made him a living soul. So what does that mean? That's the same power. When the police stop you, you got the power of the government. When the army comes into your place, they got the power of the government. When you show up, you're an ambassador of the Most High. Act like it. You see what I'm saying? You can heal anybody you want. Some people are like, well, I need to be trained in Reiki. I should get my third level in Reiki. Bro, did God say you need to get a third level? Does God have to get another training or certificate to give you some kind of manifestation or miracle? When you get a miracle from God, then you be like, God, let me see the certification first, where that came from. So the church gave us doubt in ourselves. That's it. You just, as long as you put the doubt, like remove the doubt from yourself, you're praying over the food, because you're the one having the human experience now, tapping into energies that the ancestors are not able to tap into. They can't tap into the earth like you can, because your cellular structure helps you stay magnetic. How are you grounded on the planet and have a weight? How much do you weigh? 150. That's because of your cells. How much does the spirit weigh? They don't register on the scale. So they're having a different experience, a different exchange with the earth. You're getting resources from the earth every day. So guess what that means? You're the one in charge. So what? Because you didn't ask me. You said, "Well, man, why should I feed ancestors? Why don't they feed themselves?" That's a good question, because they can't. They can't. They're dependent upon us. So it really makes us back in charge. When your mama was feeding you, she didn't say you was in charge. She was like, "Did I feed you and wipe your nose? Did all this? I'm in charge." You're the one in charge, which is why we get it twisted when we go ask a weak ancestor to do something else. Here we go again, doubting ourselves, not having the power in us, but then we don't even understand how science works. We still have a religious mind, especially in the quote unquote conscious community. I just asked the ancestors for such and such. Did you pay them for the work they did? Oh, you a nigga. You ain't even paying the ancestors for the work they did. Here's the other part. Who's over the ancestors? The angels, spirits, gods. You think they gonna deal with you? They watching how you deal with your ancestors. This is an important part when you set your altar up, that your ancestors should be at a height and the God should be over them. Especially if food is not enough for the degree. If you need to feed them and strengthen them, then you need to call in some help, some celestial help. So I always recommend black people use Lord Ganesh, because he's the God of removing obstacles and the God of success. So far, right there. Yes. Thank you.
Speaking of feeding the ancestors, first meal of the day right here, and about to jump into it. You got the soul bowl popping. I got the classic breakfast and some pancakes right here at Seeds of Life and Ooh.
We're talking about, I moved to setting up the altar. So we said, setting up the altar should be first, then bring the food, just like a table. But who's at the altar to help with the ancestral degree, which was your original question?
Yes.
So feeding the ancestors strengthens the ancestor, but he doesn't rise him to the power of a god. He may regain power as a spiritual being on the other side, but still it won't hurt for him to get some assistance. Archangel Michael, Ogun, Obatala, Krishna, planet Jupiter, Mars, all of these deities, they are available for us to call to help our ancestors. Heavy lifting, remember? You only got currently one life at a time, but you're trying to lift debris that is 15, 20, 30 generations back. Get some help. I always let the magic do the heavy lift.
So, talking about this ancestral debris, you and I spoke, and I was telling you about my ayahuasca journey, and you're into hypnogens. I'm saying that right?
Ayahuasca is an Indian drug.
Right, right. So, you talk about mushrooms, ayahuasca, difference between the two, because one of the things I talk to you about is my last experience in Peru, feeling like I purged ancestral pain. So, I would love to kind of make that connection since we're talking about
You
ancestral.
was directing this in the right direction because you could use entheogens to help clear ancestral debris. You got your altar set up, then you was feeding them, then you brought in the deities. Now you need to go do some deep work with your ayahuasca, your bufo, your DMT, your mushrooms, your San Pedro, all of this. Even your cannabis, using it responsibly. Cannabis used responsibly, because I know you got listeners who out here smoking right now while they watch. You know what I'm saying? So be responsible in everything you do.
Yeah.
A pothead is not benefiting his ancestors. Somebody that's doing mushrooms every day at a high dose is not benefiting the ancestors. The entheogens help remove the veil of that's there, slowing down the communication between you and your ancestors when you're sober. I can ask you, why didn't you purge when you were sober? Why did you have to go through ayahuasca? Because there's a veil there that it's in the frequency that we live in while we're sober, because we live in this illusion. Ayahuasca and mushrooms and entheogens, also called psychedelics, is what gives you clear sight into reality. So when you close your eyes and go into that ceremony, now you're in reality. When you open your eyes, you're back into the illusion. You walk around, eyes wide shut, you're in the illusion. What's the difference between ayahuasca and mushrooms? Lots. Mushrooms is older. Mushrooms is the original. The formula for ayahuasca came from mushrooms, because mushrooms carries all data on the planet. Mushrooms needs nothing to activate it. Ayahuasca must be blended and must be heated and added to fire with water. So it has to bring in water, fire, and the earth element to create the drink ayahuasca. So you can't just go out and be like, let me just grab this. There's no ayahuasca tree, right? It's something that a shaman or a medicine man, which is there's a difference between a medicine man and a shaman, has to create this ayahuasca for you to have this experience. So, and it's more of a purging medicine. It's more of a purging medicine, whereas mushrooms used properly in the right setting is more of a transdimensional exploratory tool. Ayahuasca, yes, the great mother's going to show you some stuff. It's probably on the way out because she couldn't show it to you because you had all this stuff in you. Now that's coming out, and now you're just like, wow, I can see. That's why it's good to do ayahuasca before you do mushrooms. It's good to do Cambo before you do mushrooms. Purge all that BS out your system so the mushroom can do what it was designed to do.
That's funny that you say that because I've done ayahuasca 2 years ago, was the first time last year, and I got my combo marks as well.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, and so I felt that I had started hearing about mushrooms, but it was in I couldn't find the right people. But then it was like after that ayahuasca, it's like, oh, it feels like it's time to work with that.
You picked the phone up for who called you first. Some people say, well, why you ain't done ayahuasca yet? Oh, you done everything else.
Yeah,
They ain't called me.
yeah,
And then when I thought they was gonna call me, the only person that I currently trust enough, which is very important, to me it's very important to have a relationship with the person who's serving me next.
right,
I ain't just gonna jump out there and go to JoJo's ceremony with a whole bunch of people.
right.
And get it going somewhere, because that's too many frequencies once my veil comes down. I've been training while the veil is up
Right.
in the spiritual and metaphysical realm. You want me to go sit in a circle with a whole bunch of jokers who ain't been doing no training? And then all our veils drop at the same time? No thank you.
Yeah.
No thank you. So Chief Nighthawk, you know what I'm saying, rest in peace, was the only person in Atlanta where I used to stay that I trusted to be like, yo, I'll do this ceremony with him. The next person is in Ecuador, Queen Jocelyn, and Sincere, who's in Detroit. He's between Detroit and Miami. But the phone hasn't rang for me yet to experience ayahuasca.
Right, because they say to do it when it calls you, so I get that. But we're going to talk about ecology and all of that, a lot to digest. Let's get into this food while it's still hot, and then we'll jump back into this conversation.
Yes.
Talking about feeding the ancestors, are we just feeding our blood relatives? Who are the ancestors exactly? How many? Is there a number? Are we supposed to be doing some research? Break it down for me.
This one's gonna be tough when I say this.
I'm listening.
This one's gonna, for some people, some people gonna be like, phew. Some people gonna be like, can't believe. All your relatives don't deserve to be on your altar, even though they might be your ancestors. Does it have to be a blood relative? No. My particular rule is, I got two rules because I'm a little more seasoned and advanced. Rule number one is, if I put my feet under their table and they fed me, and they eating with me now. So growing up, I come from a very dysfunctional family. I'm a latchkey kid. My single father raised me. We shot at all the single fathers. And I used to get home, and my best friends was these two white dudes that stayed up the street, like a quarter mile from my house. I would come home, do my homework, and then I would walk up to their house. Guess what I had? Chores at their house. Help them with the cows, help them with the pigs. Whatever their mother said for me to do, Annette Johnson, big shout out to Annette Johnson, who was, some people thought she was a racist. Because she would use the word nigga, but I never heard her say it. And she had the best biscuits. She could cook like some of the most illest meals. And I was never, ever be like, okay, we're gonna take you home now. I always had my feet under her table. I'm talking about for years and years. She would pick me up. When she picked her boys up, take them to football practice, she would be in the football stands cheering for me and her sons, right? So when she passed, guess what she had on my altar, right? Because my feet was under her table, so she should be eating at my table. She only showed me love and nourishment and gave me guidance, which moved back to the mycelium. While the Kaligi is not any type of blood relative to me. Taught me how to grow mushrooms. We guided me in sitting for other people. And now I've had over almost 300 ceremonies of using the same technique safely. And he taught me. Anytime I called him or needed something, he was on the phone saying, what's up? And he passed away April 10th, 2020. That's what he had now, April 11th. on the altar. The cat who turned me on to astrology, but I didn't even want to learn astrology. I was like, teach me about Freemasonry and Illuminati and Islam. He was like, you really need this astrology? I was like, I want to know about more religion. Abby Ilias, no blood relative. Guess where he's at right now? On my ancestor altar. My uncle did my daddy dirty. I ate at his house, but you know, he wasn't like salt of the earth. He ain't necessarily on the altar. Because when I put somebody on the altar, they get a gold frame. They get a gold or a silver frame. So anybody can set up an altar. You go to the Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, get a 3x5, 4x6 gold frame, print it out, voila. Now you got $6. Now you're gonna change the vibration of that ancestor for the duration that they are on your altar.
So part of putting the ancestors on the altar is having a picture of them.
100%.
Okay, so just to finish that thought though, on your rules of who goes on the altar, is you set them at their table and eat at their house. And what are the other rules?
If they gave you wisdom, they gave me wisdom, or like you said, a dead homie. I was with somewhere. Her son Steve Williams died in a truck accident. He's only 2 years older than me. Is he going on my altar? 100%. Cause that boy would fight. He didn't care. He had my back then, so he got my back now.
Okay, so were those the only two rules, or there are more rules? Or
There's lots of rules, but those are the basics.
okay, so those are the basics.
But I
And
wanted to give that one advanced rule to help people with money. Okay? Because a lot of our ancestors didn't have money.
well, yeah, let's say that because I want to finish one thing. So now those are the rules for who goes on the altar, and you made mention, we had the analogy of the car transmission going out, and that was your ancestor. So you have these ancestors on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other ancestors that are causing that friction that you're talking about with like the transmission, or is it just because of these? So how do you differentiate who is supposed to be fed?
Ooh, this is good. That was a good question right there. All your ancestors are eating from the food you're putting up on the altar. The ones that gave you the wisdom, they just the MVPs.
Mm-hmm.
Who make more money, Steph or Draymond? Steph. Draymond's still on the team. If they win a championship, Draymond never averaged over 20 points. Don't he get a ring? Yes. Even the dude on the bench get a ring. So the food that you putting up there is not for only the specific ancestors that you have pictures of. It's for all your ancestors that see you putting that food out there. So that's why you should be consistent, because you're calling a lot of folks. When you put that picture up there, you're being more specific, just like ancestor money. When you burn a piece of ancestor money, you need to burn the largest bills possible.
What's that mean? Ancestor money.
It's money that you burn for your ancestors. Joss paper, you put that on the bottom of the screen. Joss paper is what you look up in Wikipedia. And so it is what the Chinese actually print Joss paper, so when they go to funeral ceremonies, that they give ancestor money. They also have paper gold. So they're giving the energy of gold. You can get that at Bentang right here in Bali. They got all this. They don't have money here. They have everything else. So you could they have gold and silver.
And so what's the purpose of this? For burning ancestral money?
Don't you want to get paid when you go to work? How do you feel when you got a couple dollars in the bank account? And put 2 zeros on that. How do you feel? Swagger's up.
Yeah, but break that down. Like, they need money.
They absolutely need money because they need to buy things on the other side. On the other side, it's just like life over here. They want Snickers. They got Snickers bars over there. They just like $15. They got pizza over there. It's like $85. They got money over there. Let's back up. Guess what they have over there that we have over here first? They share the same sun. When you go to sleep and you see the sun and not the sun in your dream, it's the same sun as when you awake. Your ancestors don't get a different sun. Now it's another subject, but we do have several suns in the sky. We on this side as mortals and humanoids, we only see one. But there are multiple suns in the sky for Earth specifically. So our ancestors share the same sun. So they just got the energy off the food you cooked them. Why they wouldn't need money? They got a healthcare bill. They have hospitals on the other side. Your grandmother died. My father died of cancer. I couldn't learn enough qigong's and healing modalities to heal him. So when he got to the other side, he still had everything. He died from pneumonia, cancer, stroke. So guess what he needed? Good health care. So guess what I was doing? Funding. That's what you give the ancestors money for, because you're funding it. It's your turn. So that's why you have to go. They don't print money over there. They print the jobs paper over here. Now when you burn something, what does it turn into? It turns into you. Because carbon is the basis of our life, the sixth element on the periodic table. So when you burn the ancestor money, you're sending them carbon. You're just sending them the carbon of what is the denomination on the ancestor money, which should be billions. You can find billions easy, but don't do less than 10,000. But if you're gonna burn 10,000, you better act like you're in a strip club. You better just lots of $10,000 bills, because they only getting a tenth of it.
I want to talk about a lot more because there's a lot you bring to the table, and we can do a whole episode on ancestors. But so for people who want to learn more about this, because a lot of this is new information to myself. I know a lot of people that I know come out of like church background, so they talk that anything that doesn't look like this book is, the devil or is all of these things. Where can people go to get clear answers and guidance that they want to dig deeper into this topic?
TheCosmicJedi.com with a Z. I think I have a 2 day video course on healing your ancestors with entheogens. So I already taught this class. So you asking, I'm just pulling stuff from the video. Yeah, they can go there. They can also go to YouTube and type in ancestor money, Oyi Sun. I have a channel. They can come to the Cosmic Jedi, send me a message in the chat and say, I want to learn more about the ancestors. I send them a whole playlist.
Okay. Where'd you learn about me?
It's not one place,
Okay.
several different places. So I'll have to give a shout out to Mitchell Gibson, was probably the best. He was the one that broke it out for me around the ancestor money. I felt bad about the karma that I had about selling crack. And then I felt bad about my father being buried on credit. My father didn't have insurance. I had just went to jail. I didn't have the money to bury him. He didn't have a tombstone. Dr. Gibson was like, you better get burning some money. He's, he's not in a good place. Because now he's prayed.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on, but it sounds very disheartening for Black people. You suffer now, you suffer then. So
White people too, though. Chinese people too.
yeah,
Ancestors are ancestors.
yeah,
Which goes back to that, who can I have on my altar?
yeah. Well, ancestors are ancestors, but I'm just saying,
Right.
from our experience,
Yes.
that doesn't sound very promising.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's the number one reason we in the condition we in. Look at our relationships, look at our divorces. A lot of this could be solved with our ancestors. Back to your question about ancestral debris. What about all the divorces? What about if your ancestors don't agree with Shorty's ancestors? Do you even know how to introduce ancestors? If you was to get married, wouldn't you like your parents to meet the chick you was gonna marry? That'd be nice. Would you like to meet her parents? One is just cordial. Number two is they want to check me out. I want to check them out. I want to see who her mother is, what that's about. If I see her mama doing a bunch of arguing and disrespecting her father and stuff like that, I already know what I'm getting myself into. So what about introducing ancestors of the person that you're interested in? A lot of the divorces come because we never introduced the ancestors to each other. I really did like Shorty. She really did like me. We did have an easy vibe. But her ancestors was never introduced to mine. They considered it rude, and then they started plotting. Just like that camera, they was just like, we're going to do stuff, keep this apart. That's a very real fact.
Transitioning. So you do human design readings, do astrology. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go into mycology, right? Tell me about your experience in been like actually documenting people's journeys and everything, right? So you break down what is a mycologist, what do you do as a mycologist, and what have you seen in your research?
Peace. A mycologist is, we also call them a citizen scientist because you're a citizen of this globe and you use mushrooms as your basis for your scientific research. So a mycologist is not just one who consumes mushrooms, but he grows mushrooms. He understands the genetics of the mushrooms. He chooses the mushrooms as family and he researches his topic. A lot of people know Paul Stamets. I want them to know Kalindi Inu, all eyes, because that was our master teacher, mycologist, who taught me. We shouts out to the Tamarian blues, which was his strain that he got from Africa. Wherever a mushroom comes from, that's the vortex of magic that it brings with it. So penis envy is one of the most popular mushrooms. But where did it come from? A white man's penis? No. It came from a strain called the Amazonian. Terrence McKenna brought back from the Amazon jungle to Hawaii. And that was the strain that someone came and got and then amplified it and mutated it, which is nothing wrong with mutating the mushroom strain. You're just improving on it to where it started growing really large. All mushrooms look like penises, but the person, if I mutate something or bring a new strain out, I get to name it what I want to name it. So of course we know who named penis envy. Penis envy. It absolutely was not a brother. I'm not condemning that strain. It's a very powerful strain. It's not necessarily spiritual though. It's penis envy is like brute force. I recommend it for some traumas. You know what I'm saying? Because some stuff you just need to get mashed down before you can come in there and start doing all the other stuff. As a mycologist, you have to learn their stages. Mushrooms, you are a mushroom, whether you've had mushrooms or not. You grow in stages. Your seed or the egg inside of you is how you reproduce. The spores inside of the mushrooms is how they reproduce. But they do a lot of work underground. You do a lot of work inside your mother before you come out here and do the great work that you're doing now. You're the mushroom that came out, got the shit taken out of the tub, got dehydrated, and is now in somebody's system. And now we're on your blog post. You know what I'm saying? We're on your podcast. But where were you first? You was a seed over here and a sperm over here. That's a mycologist is one who is studying life in the mycelial system on this planet. Where do you think the internet come from? The net, mycelial network, internet, same thing, transference and sharing of information. Baba Kalindi, he taught me how to grow mushrooms through via a video that I still have today, that I still have access, let other people access.
In that sense.
Facts. Contact me at the Cosmic Jedi. You can get that video from Baba Kalindi. Baba Kalindi, after I got the video, he lost it and was like, "Yo, you got that video?" I said, "You about the one I bought from you?" He was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I can't find it." He sent it back to me. It's like immediately. So for me, that's how I felt like I was commissioned to take care of that, so people would know that technique, right? Which is called PF technique, which is it's a small technique in small half pint jars, so you can limit the potential for contamination. A lot of people just want to jump out there into the big tubs. It's more risky because you don't have the experience. And even Kaliki was just like, yo, you got to go through stages when you're learning. I didn't know that mushrooms could talk to you. I didn't know that I had an ear to hear on mushrooms. He didn't tell me that. It wasn't until I was in my own lab, chilling, very relaxed, that I started getting answers to the questions that I had during the day. So I'm thinking about da 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 da. I'm in there mixing up substrate or doing some work with the agar. I'm talking about this answer coming in clear as ain't nobody in here but me. Guess what? It's these mushrooms in here talking. And I was sober, not on no fresh, not on no dehydrated. And I was just like, wow, the power that they have is unreal. All martial arts come from mushrooms. Astrology, human design, they all come from mushrooms. All the trees and the plant life that you experience here come from mushrooms because the fungi was eating away at the sedimentary rock, creating layers. So then that they would have something that trees will grow out of, produce oxygen that will exchange with humans who produce carbon monoxide. Yeah, carbon monoxide, called the carbon dioxide. So they were here as an essential element for the creation of the planet. And so mushrooms are a recorder of information. They were the first DGI. They were the first Maxwell cassette tape. They're recording history. So when you intake them, they are analyzing where there needs to be healing so they can give you a piece of information that they have recorded on this plane. What zone did you get your mushrooms from? Sumerian blues, that's all Africa, basically. That's the best of Ghana and South Africa. Golden teachers, I ain't sure where that comes from. But you can go on the internet and type in the type of mushroom and say, where does this mushroom originate from? There's probably like over 3,000 plus strains of psychedelic mushrooms and more being discovered every day. As a mycologist, one thing for me is to make sure that my fruit of the gods, which is what mushrooms is called, is healthy. So I got to be in a healthy space. I can't just be coming in there playing NWA and stuff like that. I don't play Drake. I play Beethoven. I play Make My Funk, P-Funk. I play music soul child and music around love. I play the 432 frequencies. I play the abundance frequencies that I got from Dr. Mitchell Gibson. I play frequencies that have ancestral chants. So when I'm gone and the mushrooms is laying and they doing their thing, before they come to the surface, guess what they listening to while they sleep? We can reprogram the subconscious mind through neuro-linguistic programming by what we listen to while we, are going through sleep journey. I got to speak about my bed for the last 10 years. That's always playing something. I don't have the time, unfortunately, to pray and meditate 10 to 12 hours a day. But I can play that and still receive it in my unconscious, subconscious, and superconscious. So the mushrooms is the same way because I want to give them more data to come in and get me purely in this 6 hour period. Now, most mycologists only grow mushrooms. All mycologists don't take their own mushrooms, and all mycologists don't sit for people during ceremony. I'm a triple threat. I grow, take my own, serve other people, and sit for people. So I cover the whole board, which is why I am a Condor master coach. I'm a psychedelically informed master coach. So I can sit not just on mushrooms, but any entheogen. I know integration pre and post to help you with your ceremony because all ceremonies have one thing in common, trying to get a message to you. They're trying to get you to see something. Well, I needed to heal. Sure, after you get healed, then what? We need to use you for something. We need to task you for something. So you can't just come over here and just be like, I want to be healed. You don't work like that. How could a traumatized child be given the responsibility of making adult type decisions for their life? That's why you don't give them sharp knives and forks and stuff like that. You give them plastic. Us as human beings experiencing entheogens, mycologist is even more important because we need healthy fruit. The demand for the trauma that we carry as Black folks needs is producing a higher demand for quality fruit that is filled with love, compassion, humility, respect, freedom, those things. Beware of where you buy mushrooms from, like Little Johnny. Little Johnny got your weed, he got your pills, he got your ecstasy, he got your MDMA, and he got your mushrooms. Be careful. Because I only really want medicine from somebody who's taking the medicine. If the doctors had to start taking the medicine and they were prescribing it to cancer patients, we'd have a cure for cancer. Because they'd be like, I ain't taking that shit. You know what I'm saying? So farmers don't even eat corn. They know that corn is really not good for you. They give it to the cattle to make them big so they can sell it. When we start saying, where did my mushrooms come from? So like even here in Bali, there's no real mycologists here. They're harvesters. They're harvesting wild mushrooms that they know have psychedelic effects. They are still entheogens, they still work, but there's no care in it. Those mushrooms are just self-producing on their own. And whatever area they're in, that particular mycelial network is probably thousands of square miles. So right now we think that the two largest mycelial areas in the world are around Lake Michigan and in Oregon. So mycologists from Detroit and mycologists from Portland be arguing over my joint is bigger. Don't matter, it's still thousands of square miles. So who knows how big it is here in Bali,
Yeah.
wherever it is.
So I want to go. So you're a mycologist, and you said you've been doing research and documenting. So I want to jump into that and what have you seen from your research?
Thanks to my association with Baba Kalindi, I was introduced to the people at the top of the entheogenic game in America. I know who wrote the laws for decriminalization in Denver. His name is Kevin Matthews. I know who wrote them in Oakland. It's Carlos and Dr. Larry. Kevin introduced me to a guy at unlimitedSciences.org. They gave $30,000 to John Hopkins Psychedelic and Consciousness Research Lab that most black people don't even know existed or does exist. My research said that the guy who wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, Timothy Ferris, raised $4 billion as a VC to help fund them. John Hopkins did a research in microdosing 2,000 people in Baltimore, which has the heaviest, one of the highest per capita heroin addictions in the United States, and came back and said less than 3% of their data sample were blacks. So they concluded that blacks don't do mushrooms. We had mushrooms first. It was the blacks from Nubia that built ancient Kemet using the science of mushrooms. So what you trying to say, dog? No more funding for us? So I said, I beg to differ. All I need to do is produce data, and now I want funding too. So I created a space in Atlanta in my home called the Gin Room. And on Clubhouse 2020 during COVID, there was a lot of talk around mushrooms because people were just in the house. And they was getting to know themselves, and they was like, all right, I'm gonna try mushrooms. I'm hearing more about it. It was an eruption of mushroom videos on YouTube. There had never been this many videos about how to grow mushrooms, right? And so what some of the talk was, black people didn't want to go to see white people. Remember in Black Lives Matter, they were doing this whole thing around trying to train white people on how to deal with black trauma. Well, some things you can't deal with. Some black people are like that. It's like, I'm not going to no therapist because most therapists, when you think the word therapy, you don't think black. Black therapists need to advertise and let you know it's a black therapist out there who can understand your plight versus a white therapist. So guess what? The things that are going to come out doing a high level mushroom journey, 5, 7, and 9 grams or above, is going to be something a white person can't deal with because they ain't never experienced it. So from Kalindi's instructions and example, I stood in that space and said, I'm going to be the black person that black people can trust. The mushrooms is grown here. I know the strain, and we're gonna take them together. Now, together means I had already taken them. They could take them, but most of the times I stayed sober. You want a sitter to stay sober with you the first 1 or 2 times. If the sitter uniquely is trying to go in with you and they're at the same level, they ain't sitting for you no more. That is also called a Sherpa. But for some ceremonies that's required. Some ceremonies is optional. Some you should not do. Really, all of it is optional. None of us like I got to be in there with you. A lot of sitters try to say, "But I need to take some too, so I can be in that zone with you." It ain't your ceremony, dog. So, in my findings, what I did in the Gin room was I recorded all the entire ceremony, paper and pen. not audio, not visual, because it is a sacred ceremony. So sometimes you may be in there. I had a sister come up from Miami, just cried all night. Couldn't find out. One of the traumas that she experienced was finding her 4 year old cousin dead in the bathroom when she was like 6. She had buried that deep and didn't even remember it. Not only did she remember it, she also found out who killed her uncle. So what was I, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do I need to write that down though. So we could talk about it the next day when she came back and she finished the journey. Because, finished the ceremony, because that's when the journey begins. Now that thing has just been brought up to the surface. She can't forget what she's seen. How do I deal with my uncle? How do I deal with healing myself from my 6 year old self from seeing a 4 year old murdered in the bathroom? See what I'm saying? This is one example. We deserve, black people, to have this type of healing for us.
Yeah, so that's what I want to get into with the research. When people come to you, how they are, and then when they leave, and not just you, but just taking these journeys. So, what are the benefits that people who might be thinking about taking mushrooms can see that you've observed or have experienced yourself?
The first one is clarity and expanded consciousness, because you need a wake up call to realize when you shut your eyes, that's when you see reality. When your eyes are open, that's when you're in the illusion. So a lot of times when I'm interviewing people after this ceremony, we're in the illusionary state talking about reality. It gets you to realize that things have flipped. Most people who have never tried mushrooms say, I don't want to trip because I may see something that's not real. No, dog, you sober. Everything you see is not real. This table is not real. This drink is not real. This water is not real. All this is computer generated, simulated. When you go in with the mushrooms, then you go down and you're able to see the cause of all. Why does the table stay on the floor? Why is it square? What is wood made of? What does electricity really do? Who are my ancestors? How do I heal myself? I'm not getting no answers in the illusion. That's why they call it the matrix. So in my research, the benefits, number one benefit for me is relationships, because that's where I come from. I wanted to heal myself from the trauma that I experienced as a latchkey kid coming up in a very violent and dysfunctional household. So it's the couples that have come for me that has been the greatest breakthroughs. It is the single people who were coming, didn't even think that they needed to resolve some things around relationships, who came out and that was their topic, was, ooh, I now have new insight on how to conduct myself in certain relationships, XYZ, right? Also, for the first month after a high dose of mushrooms, you're going to see certain synchronicities that are going to pop off, that are going to be directly related to that ceremony. You might be in the ceremony and being like, man, why do I keep seeing this train? Oh, it was just a train coming through there, yo. And it just kept blowing the horn. And da, 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 da. 4.5 days later, you driving and all of a sudden you got to come to the joint and stop, and the train come by and blows. Then you look to your left and you see this person and they remind you of something. And you be like, wow, the train made me stop so I could see here. Synchronicities don't go in a straight line. That's another benefit of it, is you realize life is not a linear experience, right? But the finding and the releasing of traumas is probably the number one benefit. Another benefit is 50 Cent said, "What you it ain't about what you cop, is what you keep." The Beatles and Elvis Presley was going down to Mexico taking mushrooms and getting hit songs. Some people have caught some Picasso type art, you know what I mean? And was like, where'd you get that from? Alex Gray? Come on, where do you get all that from? From the other realm. So it could help you in profitability. It could also, some African hunters used to take mushrooms to decrease their fear levels when they went hunting. So they would follow the lions. The lions would kill the prey, and they would just walk up to the lion and take the kill. Sober, they weren't able to do that. You see what I'm saying? But once they had this confidence and low fear, which is what mushrooms absolutely can do for you. It'll boost your confidence, lower that fear. You walk right in there and step over that challenge that really, been holding you up for years or months or could be lifetimes. That's one of the things. And then also, one of the benefits is, what about seeing into the future? You know what I'm saying? What about prophecies that you may get? Or excuse me, what about latent abilities awaken during ceremony that after you take the mushrooms are now turned on, where you now can see into the future? Because a lot of times you can't remember the whole mushroom journey. Your first 4 journeys over 5 grams, you only gonna remember if it's not somebody that's sitting for you and not somebody that's writing stuff down. Like when you first come out, then you're only going to retain probably 20-25%. Which is why I say, if you're doing mushrooms for the first time and you're going 5 grams or better, stay inside so you don't get distracted. You in here to get there is a payoff. So, but you won't get the payoff if you outside talking about, the flowers were this, and those people are really afraid. A lot of people who's like, I took mushrooms and I was outside, and I don't need to go any higher because I saw nature. I'm just listening. That's what I do. But they don't say nothing about themselves. They will let nature distract them, but that same distraction could terrorize you as well. So over 5 grams outside, that nature might turn into something with a scary face. 9-10 grams outside, I don't even want to imagine. Be safety first. I'm a condor coach. It's cool to be a condor. Safety first. Integration is not no option no more.
So let me ask this. Ayahuasca. It's not for everybody for different reasons, right? Are mushrooms something that could be beneficial for everybody?
Sure. They can, just like you said, ayahuasca. Ayahuasca could be beneficial for everybody.
Well, based off of like people with psychosis and different neurological issues, I've been told that it might not be for them because it can exacerbate like those
Bullshit. It's the drugs you on because of the psychosis that the ayahuasca is not for. No psychedelics is for any pharmaceutical drugs. Thank you for that question. You cannot come to me and I'm going to sit for you if you have been taking medication in the last 30 days. So if you're going into ayahuasca with some pharmaceuticals in your system, that's the problem. If you go into mushrooms with some pharmaceuticals in your system, that's the problem. If you're going to do bufo with the medication in your system, that's the problem. They will hunt it out and they will violently react to it because it's in direct opposition with nature. So they're gonna handle it like some gangster shit. See what I'm saying? I like the love gangster that they do when they come in there. When I've been fasting that day, drunk nice and hydrated, I ain't on no medication or nothing like that, that's fine. If you are on any type of medication, you need to leave ayahuasca and mushrooms alone until you've been off of it for 30 days or more. If you have a mental issue, you probably are on some type of medication. If you have mental issues and you're not on medication, you should rush to ayahuasca. You should rush to mushrooms. You should rush to your local medicine man and get you some help because entheogens remove the urge and desire to do harm to yourself, which we're not sure of prescription drugs that we can say the same thing about them. Some people use prescription drugs to overdose to kill themselves. You've never heard anybody say, I killed myself because I took too many mushrooms.
Well, they wouldn't be here to kill themselves.
You can't though. Right. So, and for the people who are watching, like you said, like the beginners, you would have to have a 50% chance of killing yourself with mushrooms You would have to eat half your body weight to have a 50% chance of killing yourself. That means you would have to eat 75 pounds of psychedelic mushrooms in order to have a 50% chance of dying. Let me assure you that you can't eat. You can't eat. At this point, you can't eat an ounce of mushrooms. And I don't know nobody who's eating 2 ounces, including Kalindi. Kalindi's top dose was 50. In an ounce is 28 grams. In 1 pound, you have to have 16 ounces. So you need 16 ounces times 75 is what you got to eat to have a 50% chance. So no, nobody's ever died. Nobody's gonna die. Will you feel like you are dying? Possibly. But it's addressing your fears because death is not real. And with the same point, somebody thinking right now, well, what about ego death? Bull crap. There's no such thing. Because everybody doesn't even have an ego. Back into human design. 80% of the population don't have an ego. So how can you just all of a sudden say, I took some mushrooms and I had an ego death? Or set an intention to go in and have an ego death. If you want to have an ego death, what are you saying? That I'm irresponsible. It's all my ego's fault. Everything that I have done that is messed up and all the reason that I'm not living my best life is because my ego is alive and well. That sounds stupid. And it's very untrue and it's very misleading when people don't check it. They just let people just say whatever. Dog, you got to check that. You can't kill the ego. First off, what's wrong with you wanting to kill something that's a part of you? And when you going to accept some accountability? The problem is up here, not in here. The mind is the one that's giving you these imaginary things. Remember, there's been people in a coma who got pregnant while they was in a coma. When you're in a coma, that means from the neck down, you're still living, but from the neck up, you could be a vegetable. So this part of here is not as important as the soul, the spirit, the ego. They should be functioning in harmony. It's this thing up here that's causing the non-harmony to take place. To think I need to kill a part of myself in order for me to be okay. That's crazy. You need a human design reading and we'll get all that straight.
So that's a good segue. Human design, you're a human design reader. Break down what is human design and how can people use that to benefit their life.
I started off as an astrologer 22 years ago, and I found out that human design was part astrology. So I study all astrology, the Vedics, the tropicals, the Chinese. It don't matter. You know what I'm saying? I want to know all the positions and all the influences of the planets. I also was studying the I Ching. When I saw that the human design had I Ching and had astrology and also had been upgraded to a 9 center being versus a 7 center being that most yogis sit out here and say, you know, the 7 chakras, the 7 energy centers. What you gonna do when you meet human design? Because the body's always modifying like a cell. Cell reproduces itself every 72 hours. You don't have the same cells that you had when you was a baby. You don't have the same cells you had last week. So why would God restrict you? If you know that we have 7 now, there was a time when we only had 5. There's a time before that where we only had 3 chakras. So if we went 3, 5, 7, should be pretty, we going to 9. Human design is a science that was transmuted and downloaded through this white dude from Canada named Ra that combined the I Ching, astrology, a 9 centered human being, as well as some Kabbalah. And it is used very similar to numerology and astrology to identify who and what you are and to help you navigate this illusion. Because the line, when human design came down, it was called the mechanics of the Maya. Maya is the illusion. The mechanics is how things work. If you start describing this table and say it has 4 legs and it's made out of wood and there's nails in it, I just described the mechanics of this physical thing. Well, we live in an illusion. How do we navigate through it? We need to use our birthday like we've been doing for centuries to navigate through this lived experiment. It's not an experience we're in because it's new every day. An experience is the same. That salad I had was an experience, same formula. We're having an experiment because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But if you use your numbers, then you can learn and see what are your gifts, where you can go with it, and have a much more detailed overview of yourself. Is it superior to astrology? No. Is astrology superior to human design? No. Um, it's like a boxer trying to fight with one hand. Why don't you go ahead and just pull out the other hand? My mission is to have more human design practitioners exposed to astrology, added to their practice, and more astrologers adding human design as a modality and practice to their practice. Why would you study Reiki and not study Qigong? Why would you study uh, martial arts and not meditate? So some things are complementary, not the division that we have in saying mine is better, right? Human design is very logical and left brain. Gene keys is right brain and more contemplative. But you need the data from the human design to pull your gene keys chart. Human design identifies your purpose, your vocation, your life path, your culture, and the injuries associated with your trauma via the gene keys much clearer than astrology. Astrology recognizes the houses and the rising sign, which human design does not. So both of them are leaving money on the table. Your rising sign is important, even if you're doing a numerology reading. Your um, what is your design Jupiter? Wouldn't you like to make some more money? Then, then where's my design? Where's my personality Jupiter? And what's the difference between that one and my design Jupiter? Human design gives you two charts. It gives you a chart like your natal on your birthday. Then it gives you a design chart for 88 days before you enter through your mother into this plane. That's called the design sign. What is your actual design? When consciousness came in. Why are there three trimesters when a woman is giving birth? Because the soul is making sure it's safe to come down here because you know the reputation of human beings and abortions. So consciousness is not going to wait until you land on your birthday. It's going to come in. So that last trimester that you are physically in your mother's stomach, your consciousness is traveling this planet. So this is not your first time in Bali. You already was in Bali from inside your mom because your consciousness didn't have any restrictions. So human design shows you what is the design of my consciousness and what is the design of my personality. How can I put them together? And now I got the best of both worlds to realize I'm just riding on a rock. Can we stop calling it Earth for a second? Can we stop calling it a planet for a second? Guess what it is? It's a rock. This rock that we're riding on is only giving us a ride. I think human design is something that is essential that we should be teaching in elementary school. Human design was brought here for the children. Astrology was brought here for scientists, advanced stuff like building pyramids and stuff. When we had astrology in elementary school, we built pyramids. When they took astrology out of elementary school, they moved us into projects. Now that we have human design, it's in to correct to save the children. Human design is Wu-Tang.
And you know, Wu Tang is for the children. So, yo, I think we should do another episode on human design. Maybe even do a chart reading so people can really like get into what is it, make it clear for them, and you do human design reading. So where can people find you if they want to get a reading done? If they want to find out more about mycology, how can they reach you?
They can find me at thecosmicjedi.com with a Z. However, I cannot separate the sciences. That's the problem. So if you get a reading from me, you get an astrology, human design, gene keys, tantra, shamanistic magic. You're getting all that. That's why when you go on my website, it says transformational session. It's not called gene keys or astrology. I can't honestly do that. Even when somebody comes, I want a human design reading. Well, I'll use that as the base, but I'm not gonna leave out all this other stuff. I want an astrology reading. Have you ever heard of human design? No, you still gonna get something today. Because you need all of it for transformation of you in your consciousness so you can be your ancestors' wildest dream.
Oyi, thank you, sir. We got to sit down on your podcast as well and shoot the episode. So it's going to be more content coming.
Bon bon.
We got so much to talk about. So it's going to be a continued conversation, bro.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was an honor being here. You know what I'm saying? I think we should probably do about 100,000 views on this. You know, on the other show, they got how many
10x.
views? 10x that.
10x.
Should do a million?
Let's do a million here, a million there, a million here for long hair, bring coke in the dairy. Yeah, we out of here, man. We probably go listen to some music. I'm probably gonna throw on some hip hop. He gonna throw on some Beethoven. But you know what I'm saying? Hey, we learning.
I'm gonna throw some Cat Williams.